I can't see everybody. I see the numbers going up, but I can't see the names, so I'm hoping that it's not delayed. If it is, I will catch you when it pops up. Sacred space. Everybody needs a sacred space. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. It is time for our 5 tips at 5. Hey, Cindy, how are you? I hope things are going well for you. Guys, do me a favor and type in your wins for the week. What are you celebrating this week? We've got so much going on. It is super duper important that we celebrate our wins. Hey, Elizabeth, celebrate our wins, guys. Sometimes we have to be reminded of the things that we've accomplished during the week because it could all get lost in the noise that life creates. So I want you to type in something that you're celebrating. What are you celebrating this week? What are you celebrating this week? Type in your wins, type in your wins. I'm celebrating the fact that I had an awesome staff meeting on Friday. I got a chance to meet with my staff. We didn't meet face to face. However, we did get a chance to meet, and on Friday, one of my teachers was announced as the elementary school teacher of the year, which was super awesome, a great start to a year, and it brought me great pride. So that is my celebration for the week. What's your celebration? What are you guys celebrating? Anybody celebrating? Daphne, you're in here. Cindy, Elizabeth, what are you guys celebrating? Let me see what you're celebrating. We're getting started in 1 minute. We're going to be talking about managing anxiety, the new leadership skill. Most often in leadership, we focus on the task and the doing of leadership. However, in this season, it's going to be necessary that we focus on the being parts of leadership. I am Dr. Barbara Swinney, your life and holistic leadership coach, inspiring transformational thinking, living and leading. I count it my job to get you to you so that you can show up in leadership wearing the clothes that only you can wear. The very essence of holistic leadership is self-leadership. So that's where we're going to start. We're going to start with the self. We're going to start with you. Hey, Michael. Hey, Miss Collins. Hey, guys, while I'm talking, type in your celebrations for the week. What is it that you are celebrating? What happened good this week? We know that we have a lot of distractions. We're still in the middle of a pandemic. However, I don't think the pandemic is any longer the problem. We are experiencing the impact of the pandemic. But now it's going to depend on how we respond. Our outcome is going to depend on how we respond. So type in, hey, Rhonda. Yes, I saw Rhonda. Rhonda has lost so much weight. I am super proud of her. So excited for you and everything that's coming for you, Miss Brady. Thank you so much for sharing that. Miss Collins, I miss you. I will definitely be in touch with you. We are talking about anxiety this week. Like and share this live. Like and share it, guys, because I think we're going to talk about some really important things. If you're coming here from the Deeper Women Speak group, it's likely that you've heard some of the tips today. But because we're human, because we're all the same, the tips are similar in dealing with anxiety. And I know that if I'm feeling the anxiety, you are feeling the anxiety, because guess what? We're all just reflections of each other. We're one spirit compartmentalized by different skin tones, different eye colors, different shapes and sizes, and guys, sometimes other people's hair. But we are all the same, 99.9% the same. So if I'm experiencing some anxiety, you are likely experiencing some anxiety. So we're going to jump into our topic today. Our topic is managing anxiety, the new leadership skill. And you've also heard me say that leadership does not reside in a position. It resides in people. So you don't necessarily have to be in a leadership position to be a leader. It is not about doing or what level you're on. It's about who you are. And that's what Dr. Barbara Swinney deals with. She deals with the who part of who you are. So let's just put it out there, put it on the table. All leaders have anxiety. No matter who you are, no matter how much money you have, no matter what you live, no matter where you live or what position you hold, all leaders experience leadership anxiety. It is a real thing. And before we can even start to have the conversation about the 5 tips, before we talk about the 5 tips, there are actually 3 things that we need to talk about. First of all, before we can manage our anxiety or learn to manage anxiety perpetually, because it's not going anywhere, it's going to be with us, you must first acknowledge that there is anxiety. You have to acknowledge what you're going through and what you feel. The next thing you have to do is you have to identify the source of the anxiety. And the last thing is you have to know how it shows up. So we're going to talk about those 3 things quickly before we get into our 5 tips for managing the anxiety. So, anxiety, again, is a real thing. I was reading an article, and it was actually I think it was in Education Weekly, and the title of the article was Anxiety, the New Disability. If they are calling anxiety the new disability, that means anxiety is an issue, and it's something that we have to deal with. Over 44 million Americans deal with anxiety. So anxiety is a thing, and we cannot deny it. It is there. There are all kind of, it's considered actually a mental disorder depending on the level of anxiety that you are experiencing. It can be crippling. It can paralyze productivity. It is a thing. Do y'all get that? Give me some hearts if you get that. If you understand that anxiety is a thing and you've felt some anxiety, if you felt anxiety this week, let me see some hearts. I want to see it. I need you guys here to comfort me and help me lead through this pandemic. Anxiety is definitely a thing. So now that we have talked about those, we've acknowledged it, over 44 million Americans suffer from anxiety. Where really does anxiety come from? It seems as if we are creating our own anxiety, or we're creating the conditions for it, because really anxiety comes from a false need that you've established for yourself. This week, and probably since March, we've been inundated with a lot of information, sometimes misinformation, and as leaders, we have to be in the position to filter the information so that we can lead our people. However, when you are waiting for the information, you're telling yourself, I need this information. I need to know where I'm supposed to be, what time, where do I need to tell my people to be, where are we going? Here's the deal. That's a false need, because no, you don't. You don't need the information. Everything you need is already inside of you. You are a leader. You know what to do. You don't have to wait for somebody to tell you what to do. So just make the decision. A lot of times we're depending on things outside of us to help us control what we need to do for our people when we really already know what we need to do. So one source of anxiety it comes from establishing a false need for yourself. Now, it'll take us a little longer to talk about this, so we won't get into it today because this one is really deep. Truly, anxiety is rooted in identity. It's because we don't know who we are truly, who the real you is, we focus on a whole lot of stuff that we should not be focusing on. We're reaching for things that do not belong to us. We don't fully grasp our capacity, which means that we don't fully accept our limitations, and that causes anxiety. And then how does anxiety manifest itself? How does anxiety show up? It shows up with overthinking. When I was getting ready for this live, I had to go and pick up my daughter. She was being picked up at 4 o'clock, and she asked me, "Mommy, why are you so off? Why are you so anxious? What's wrong with you?" I said, "Well, I got to do my live at 5." She said, "Mommy, it is literally 4 o'clock. I said, I know, but I gotta get set up and all of that. She said, you can do that at 4:30. I said, you're right. So I took a deep breath and decided to listen to my 15-year-old. You don't have to have it all together. Sometimes we put these fake deadlines on ourselves, like I'm gonna lose 10 pounds in 2 weeks. Well, who said you had to, and what would happen if you didn't? So sometimes we are creating our own anxiety, and we have to be careful that we're not doing that. Anxiety shows up in an increased heart rate. I remember during March, when we were in shutdown and then we got the news of George Floyd, I woke up one morning having a panic attack. I felt like my chest was gonna explode because my heart was pounding so hard. And I was just trying to figure out, what is it that I need to do? What can I do in the grand scheme of all of this stuff going on? I was dealing with some heavy anxiety that I didn't quite know what to do with. So anxiety shows up in an increased heart rate. It shows up in sweating. It shows up with you thinking erratically. Your thoughts are just kind of all over the place and you can't really get your thoughts together. It shows up in speech. You can hear it sometimes when you're talking to somebody. They're all over the place. They're not sure. They don't have clarity. Lack of clarity also can cause anxiety. Okay, so now that we know those three things, we've acknowledged that it exists, we know where it comes from, we know the source, and we know how it shows up. Now we're going to talk about the 5 tips for managing it. How do you actually manage anxiety? Here's what I learned in my research. I was just researching anxiety, and I was thinking about, okay, well, how do leaders deal with anxiety? Leadership anxiety is a real thing. And when you look it up, they liken leadership anxiety to chronic anxiety, toxic stress that you are engaged in for a long, extended period of time. That's what they liken leadership anxiety to. So if you are in a position of leadership, or you're leading a group of people, you're leading your family, a team, an organization, chances are you are at some point experiencing some anxiety. We're going to talk about how to manage that today. Tip number 1 for managing anxiety is increase your mind and body awareness. I just said that you can feel anxiety in your body. You know your body, you know when something is off. However, when you're running, and you don't ever take time to sit with yourself and get quiet, and Ms. Collins, I know you remember me talking to you about this, sit with yourself, get quiet so you can get to know your body. So that when you are experiencing that anxiety, you can feel the tension rising. A lot of times I will get not necessarily a pain, but an uncomfortable feeling in my stomach. Some people actually experience anxiety so badly before an event that they throw up before an event. So get to know your body. You have to get clear in your mind and in your body so that you can understand what's happening. Make sure you're noticing what's happening in your body. Don't just let it sit there, but explore it. And that takes us to tip number 2. Tip number 2, ask yourself the question, what is it that I believe that I need that I don't really need? It's just like me rushing to try to sit in front of this live. I really didn't need as much time as I thought I needed. It was a false need that I had established for myself. And when you're feeling that anxiety, you have to ask yourself, what is it that I feel like I need that I don't really need? That's tip number 2. Tip number 1, increase mind and body awareness. Tip number 2, ask yourself the question, what is it that I believe I need that I don't really need? Tip number 3 for managing anxiety, learn the art of delegation. The very purpose of leadership is growing other people. You cannot grow other people if you don't share the authority and the task with other people. Delegating is an art and a science. And the purpose of delegating to other people is to help them grow in the areas that they need to grow. You have to understand that a part of your role is to identify the gifts in others and then align the tasks that need to be completed with that gift. Because you don't want to just give people, stuff to do that has nothing to do with who they are or how they grow. So a part of your role as the leader is to identify the gifts in others and then align the task with that gift. And then you give that thing to that person. So you have to learn the art of delegation. I know that my gift is, I'm a gifted visionary. I see things in a complete package. I see the end. I know what the end is going to be. I know all of the details that it takes to get there. However, I know that the details are not my gift. So I try to spend my time focusing on the things that are my gift. It's kind of like Covey's urgent but not important. Focus on the things that are important and don't always get stuck in the urgency of things. All right. Who knows what tip number 1 is? Can somebody tell me what tip number 1 is? Tip number 1. Type it in, type it in, type it in. Are y'all listening? Okay. I got a thumbs up. Okay, I'm going to tell you, just in case somebody new joined. Tip number 1, increase mind and body awareness. Tip number 2, ask yourself the question, what is it that I believe I need that I don't really need? Tip number 3, learn the art of delegation. Even if you're a mom leading your family, know what your gifts are. I'm the youngest of 10 children. The one thing that my mother knew how to do, she knew each one of us. She knew what to give to whom. She knew what our gifts were, and she was able to delegate tasks in that way. And I believe much of my leadership came from my mother. She knew exactly what to give us. She didn't make a difference between us. She just knew that this one may be gifted in math and logistics and all of that. Oh, I already know that Barbara's a dreamer, so don't give her, like detailed tasks to do, because she's going to struggle with that. So it doesn't mean that I can't do it. It just means that that's not my sweet spot. That's not my hot spot. Tip number 4. Now this one is this is a good one. Educators really struggle with this one. Avoid being hyper responsible. In education, we think we're supposed to be everything to everybody. We think that things won't get done unless we do them. As a leader, you have to address the issue, but don't take the issue on. If children are hungry, feed the children, but don't take the burden of the children needing to eat home with you. You have to be very careful with that, because that could cause anxiety. I know that when we went home in March, we were all worried about the children. How are they going to eat? How are they going to learn? How, which leads to anxiety. Here's the thing. I'm not telling you not to care about the children or not to care about whomever you serve. Surgeons care about their patients, but they don't take them home with them. And that's what we tend to do. We tend to take our clients, our students, home with us. Don't assume that these children don't have support systems already outside of you. So what we do is, and it goes back to identity, because we don't know our limitations, we take on everything that doesn't belong to us. Sometimes we can't sleep at night because we're worried about the children, or we're worried about something that somebody else is taking care of. And we have to rest in the fact that other people are doing things too. Other people are doing things to support the community too. You're not the only person. So be careful of that. Tip number 1, I'm going to go back to the top just in case you're just joining us. Tip number 1 for managing anxiety: increase mind and body awareness. Tip number 2, Ask yourself the question, what is it that I believe that I need that I don't really need? Be careful of setting up false needs. Tip number 3, learn the art of delegation. And tip number 4, avoid being hyper responsible. I call it super responsible. Avoid being hyper responsible. And our last tip seems like an oxymoron. Tip number 5, fight for peace. You have to protect your peace. You have to stay in a positive mindset because anxiety is contagious. Don't spend a lot of time with anxious people. Don't spend a lot of time, I call them, with damsels in distress. People who have a lot of anxiety because they haven't learned to manage it, they can throw you into anxiety. And as the leader, your people need to be able to see you, look at you, and know that all things are okay. So if you are under Dr. Barbara Sweeney's leadership, please know that Dr. Sweeney is meditating at least once a day, but sometimes twice. I'm walking, I'm working out, I'm exercising, all so that I can stay clear, because I know that somebody's gonna walk in my office and need the fuel that I have afforded myself. So be sure that you're taking the time to do that. Fight for your peace. Protect the time. Don't spend time with people who are anxious. Don't keep talking about the problems. That also causes anxiety. Don't get in a room with somebody, and I say that sometimes you can get in a room with somebody who's talking negatively. It's almost like going into a room with a dirt floor, everybody's kicking up the dust, and then they leave out. Well, you still have the residue on you. You're still taking all of that stuff in, which also causes anxiety. So don't hang out with anxious people, and don't be an anxious person. Anxiety is not going anywhere, but we are bigger than anxiety. We're bigger than this mind. We're in control of it, and we can do something about it by controlling our environment. Limit the amount of television that you watch. Throw yourself into all things good. You have to just be very conscious of that and fighting for your peace. Establish a quiet time, not just for the morning, but throughout the day. Establish a time to get quiet. And that might be difficult, but you know how people pay for what they want? You make room for what you want. If you want peace, you have to establish the structure in your day for peace. When we were out for summer and because of COVID-19, I was trying to figure out, when I go back to work, how do I protect this time that I've had? Even though we were still working, I didn't have the commute time. There was lots of downtime in my day, so I was trying to come up with a plan for protecting that time. So here's what I did just the other day, because I forgot that I was supposed to have that plan. I established a schedule for myself. So when I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, my quiet time is from 4 to 5. My business time is from 5 to 6. And then I included about 30 minutes for some housekeeping, making sure the house is clean so that when I come back home, I'm entering a quiet, peaceful place. And then I go to work. But at the end of the day, I have a workout built in. So you have to make sure you are controlling the time, because time is also something that causes anxiety, because we always feel like we don't have enough of it. But the thing is, we're also in control of our time. So that would be a bonus tip. Always know that you have the power. Always know that you are in control. If you're not in control of it, that means you're not supposed to be doing anything about it. If you can't impact it, that means that's not your lane, and it's not meant for you to do something about it. Set clear boundaries and expectations for yourself and for those that you lead. One of the things that I try to do, and sometimes I have to ask my team for forgiveness, is I think a lot and I study a lot and all of that, and things will just pop up, and I could come up with a thought at 2 o'clock in the morning and I want to dump it. I want to get it out of my head, so I'll shoot a quick text. Don't do that. that is not a good practice, because as the leader, your people want to please you. Even if your people are children, they want to please you. So when you send a text at 2 o'clock in the morning, it's difficult not to feel obligated to answer that text. So don't do that to your people. You have to set boundaries, because you are teaching people how to treat you. So if you are always answering your phone at 8 o'clock at night, guess what? I'm going to think that I can call you at 8 o'clock at night. And I'm not going to respect it's not that I'm disrespecting your family time, but you've taught me that it's okay because you keep answering. As long as you keep answering, I'm going to keep calling. The other day when I came home and kind of going back to making sure you're active and you're moving, I'd had a long day, a long week, and I just needed to spend time with my daughter. We went out, we threw the softball. I got in a much better mind space, and it was almost like all of that stuff just washed away. If COVID-19 didn't teach you anything, it should have taught you that most of the stuff that we get anxious about doesn't matter. If it's not going to matter in 5 years, if it's not going to matter in the next hour, if it's not going to matter in 5 days, then it's not worth being anxious over. And we just have to remember that. Even with me sitting on this live, I put in my head, you're going to be, by 5:30, by 6 o'clock, you're going to be cooking dinner. You'll be on to the next task. So let's not spend a whole lot of our time and energy being anxious about things that in the long run don't matter. And frankly, y'all, we're not controlling any of this. We think we're making stuff happen. We're just bumping into the stuff that we were supposed to bump into. We're just bumping into stuff that was already a part of the plan. So we have to manage that, and we manage that by managing ourselves. Everything truly is a you issue. Jack Canfield, the co-author of Chicken Soup for the Soul, wrote the book 69 Principles of Success. And in the book, he included this formula, E plus R equals O. That means event plus response equals outcome. Events are gonna happen, guys. This stuff is gonna happen in your life all the time that you cannot control. How you respond is going to determine the outcome that you get. So you are the only steady in the whole situation. So stay steady. And I think I talked about this already. Most of the stuff that's happening in the world, going back to anxiety being an issue of identity, most of the stuff that's happening in the world, hey Michelle, most of the stuff that's happening in the world is due to the fact that people don't know who they are. We don't know who we are, so we show up in a way that's not aligned with who we truly are. So if we get back to us, if we take the time to get quiet, get still, and get clear about who we are, we will respond differently. We will behave differently. You don't accept things that don't belong to you when you know who you are. When you understand your value, you don't spend time with people who don't understand your value. So everything goes back to identity, and it goes back to who you are. Are there any questions about the tips? We're going to go back to the top and talk about I'm going to give you the 5 tips, Michelle. Here are the 5 tips for managing anxiety. I don't know what you do, Michelle, but if you are leading people, if you're leading a family, you probably experience anxiety at some point. Here are 5 tips to deal with those. Tip number 1, increase mind and body awareness. Understand what's happening in your body. Tip number 2, ask yourself the question, what is it that I believe I need that I really don't need? Tip number 3, learn the art of delegation. Cindy, you can't do all of this by yourself. You have to delegate. And I'm saying that to Cindy because I know her. Tip number 4, avoid being hyper responsible. Some of the stuff that we try to take on our shoulders, that we try to be responsible for, simply is not our responsibility. And like I said earlier, as educators, we are very guilty of taking on other people's problems because we feel like we have to be the counselor, the mother, and all of that. And tip number 5, fight for peace. Establish a structure so that peace is a part of your day. Have those quiet times spread throughout the day so that you can have your peace. Any questions about the tips? Thank you so much for joining me today. I always enjoy sitting down and talking to y'all. There's a lot going on in the world today, guys. There's a lot that we have to deal with day in and day out. In the middle of a worldwide pandemic, some of us are experiencing our own personal pandemics. Some of us are going through a divorce. Some of us are changing jobs. Some of us are having babies. Some of us have lost loved ones. So we are dealing with some things ourselves that are not related to the pandemic. So we have to make sure that we are rooted in something solid, that we are rooted in who we are authentically, so that we know that all of the things that are happening outside of us have absolutely nothing to do with us, but how we respond to them will definitely determine the outcome. If you like this and you are interested in taking your leadership to the next level or taking your life to the next level, book a discovery call with me. Go to my website, barbaraswinneyinc.com, schedule a discovery call, and let's talk. Let's see if we're a match for each other. Let's see if I can help you get from where you are to where you want to be. Somebody had to be there for me, and I want to be there for you to hold the space for your next, so you can think about your next while you're managing the demands of what's happening in your life right now. I'd love to be on that journey with you. Go to my website, barbaraswinneyinc.com, schedule a discovery call. You can also go to and get my free gift at bswinneyfreegift.com. The free gift there is the 21 Values of Effective Leadership. Download that, mull over that, then go to my website, barbaraswinneyinc.com, and schedule a discovery call. Let's talk. Let's see how we can do this thing together. Thank you so much for, what is Cindy saying? Cindy said, we'll be working on, good, Cindy. Cindy's going to be working on her schedule for self-care. Please, Cindy, and if I can help you with that, I certainly will. Cindy's going to be my new partner in the school just down the street, and I'm so excited to work closely with my friend. I do call her friend. So thank you, Cindy, for tuning in. Thank you, Rhonda, for tuning in. Thank you, Daphne. Thank you, Cheryl. If I start calling all the names, then I'm going to leave somebody out. Thank you, Mike. Michael is my classmate. Thank you for Michael for tuning in. Thank you so much. We're going to sign off now. I will be back on next Sunday, every Sunday at 5 o'clock, 5 tips at 5. If there is a topic that you'd like for me to discuss, let me know, and I certainly will discuss it. Inbox me, and I will, with whatever topic you'd like for me to discuss, and I'll be happy to do that. I am Dr. Barbara Swinney, your life and holistic leadership coach, inspiring transformational thinking, living, and leading. It is my goal, my job, my purpose to get you to you so that you can show up in leadership wearing only the clothes that you can wear. Thank you. Find your sacred space.